Gateway Gamers podcast.
Hello there, time travelers and tabletop tinkers. Welcome to the Gateway Gamers. My name is Brian, and this is a show where a hobby gamer and a gateway gamer explore the games that got us into the hobby, and ones that keep us coming back. Today I'm flying solo through the time vortex, and I brought along a little something from one of Britain's finest exports, not tea, nor scones, but Doctor Who, Time of the Daleks from Gale Force 9. Now, before I dive deep into this game, I just want to talk about what is Doctor Who. It's not an IP that everyone's super familiar with. It's one that's close to my heart, though. But Doctor Who is one of the longest sci-fi shows of all time. Started back in 1963 on the BBC, and has gone through a bit of different iterations and regenerations. The Doctor is a Time Lord from the planet Gallifrey, a sort of time-traveling alien who explores the universe in a TARDIS, which is a ship that is disguised as a 1960s British police box, because his chameleon circuit broke, so it just kind of stuck looking like that. It's a very interesting character. He doesn't use any weapons or anything. He just kind of like goes around, helps people through different times and events throughout history. And then he also just kind of like brings along a human companion that just kind of keeps him grounded. There's been, at this point, 15 regenerations of this character. So the newest season just dropped yesterday, depending on when you're listening. So there's been 15 different actors that have kind of played the Doctor. In a sense, it's very confusing when you have a show that's run as 60 years. And that's kind of it. That's all you really need to know, is that he's an alien that goes around helping people for different planets, different time periods. He doesn't have weapons. He has something called a sonic screwdriver that's just like this very, I don't know, obtuse like tool that he kind of does everything with. Any technology he can kind of like point it at and it does something. So that's kind of the basics of it. Obviously, because he's an alien and he travels time and space, he fights other aliens such as the Cybermen, the Weeping Angel, and of course the Daleks, which the title of the game is kind of based off of. So that's it. Just kind of give a little bit of background on the IP before we kind of dive into the game, because this is a game that is a good game, but it really depends on being familiar with the IP to really enjoy it. So Doctor Who Time of Daleks is a semi-cooperative dice chucker, which is kind of a race against the mechanic, the game itself. You and a fellow player, or you can actually play solo with alternative doctors, are trying to reach Gallifrey, the Doctor's home, before Davros and his pesky Daleks overrun space and time. The core of the game is mostly pattern matching and dice, with completing adventures. So you start by choosing one of the 4 doctors that are included in the box. I have the expansions, which includes more doctors. But the ones that are in the box are the 1st Doctor, the 4th Doctor, the 11th, and the 13th. So once you choose the Doctor you want to play as, you get their corresponding little board that has spaces for the equipment. It lets you know what dice you need to use. And then you also get the companion card that's kind of linked to your Doctor. Each Doctor has a specific partner that they kind of start with to help them out. And then on your turn, you'll equip your player with timey-wimey cards, and they're gained throughout the game. These are just various bonuses and things that are familiar to, again, people that are familiar with the IP. So it might be a specific screwdriver, a specific item, like scarf, or different things that the Doctor wears, or things that have appeared in an episode to make you go, oh, I remember that. Like, it's really cool. And then once you get all that stuff together, the companions and your time-wimey cards will give you benefits to either additional dice that you'll roll on your turn, or they'll give you specific colored dice, because the dice do different things, and I'll kind of talk about it. And then you can dismiss these companions at any time to trade them for other ones once you get more. So you can really make your Doctor unique if you want. Like, you don't have to follow the certain companion as you're going on. You can have one Doctor with another companion, or another Doctor. Like, it's very interesting in a way, and it's not like game breaking, because it would make sense that the Doctor could gather all these companions, and they could run into other versions of the Doctor. So it's actually like a weird way that it makes sense. It's not like game breaking, that you can't be like, well, this Doctor wouldn't do that. It's like, the Doctor would be able to run with Rose Tyler as the 13th Doctor. It just hasn't happened to show, but with time travel, it can absolutely happen. After your prep phase, you move on to the travel phase. During this phase, players will have the opportunity to move their player to a specific location in the play area. So during setup, you'll have a big board in the middle that's kind of like a countdown tracker, and then around it you'll have flip down like tokens, and then that'll be like Earth present, Earth future, and Earth past. You'll move your doctor to that area, flip the token over, the token will have a specific condition or win condition. You gotta roll for it. So again, they're all very dependent on your knowledge of the IP. Or if you flip it over and it's Suteth, which is a 1960s villain, you'll have an idea when you first move to that area what dice you need. So the picture will have a blue die, a red die with a fist, a red die with some arrows on it. When you flip the token over, there's more symbols you kind of roll. So it's a mystery of what you're going for. So it adds like an element of unknown with some known elements. And then once you get to that area, you're going to roll the dice. The dice that you kind of have because of your companion, because of your item that you have, this is where it becomes dependent. So if you have a very red heavy, green heavy, like doctor at the start, you're going to need some companions that give you some other dice. Because I will kind of say the game is hard. Like, it's very challenging, which isn't necessarily bad or good. I'll kind of talk about it later, but I catch myself, especially in the beginning game, kind of cheating a little bit, where I'm like, that didn't work. There are ways to mitigate the dice, but the beginning of the game, depending on what you flip, it could be really brutal. Now, that being said, once you kind of roll, you have the Yahtzee style of you can kind of mitigate the dice you want to keep and then roll again to go mitigate the more dice you want to keep to get what you need. If you fail, each token has a condition. So, like I said, with Suteth, if you fail, you lose one of your equipment cards and you move the Dalek ship 2 spaces. As I said, in the middle of the table, you kind of have this countdown. The Daleks are moving around as you're moving around. So if the Daleks get to Gallifrey, if you fail enough, then that's how you kind of lose the game. Now, when I say you fail, the bad things happen, you also succeed, and you have successful results. Usually be moving your TARDIS forward, drawing 3 of those timey-wimey cards. You can gain 2 spaces and get sonic charges. Sonic charges help you re-roll your dice and whatnot. So there's strategies that help you out, but the first couple rolls before you start getting these things are pretty brutal. As I said, the beginning of this game can be extremely hit or miss. After your turn, the Daleks get their turn. They move their ship closer to Gallifrey. And then as they're moving, they could trigger anomalies. Time anomalies will cause trouble. They'll limit the access to certain colored dice that you have. It's just another way to make the game harder. It's almost, again, unnecessary with how hard it already is, being extremely random. Time anomalies are, I don't know, they're a lot for this game, and they're a real pain. And then there's a certain like win condition to get rid of them, which luckily the win conditions could be part of the roll that you're making towards another thing. It's not necessarily something that you have to focus on. It's just something that's there and you can kind of get lucky with. And then that kind of goes back and forth until either you as the Doctor make it to Gallifrey or the Daleks do. It's just a lot of moving to places and being like, I gotta roll the dice, and then you're building up your tableau to make your Doctor either more powerful with companions and items, or like getting thwarted and losing companions and items, and then having to go back and forth. It's a lot of back and forth tug of war, which it's tough. This is a very tough game. I will say, as I said at the beginning, it's a co-op game, but you don't have the same goal. There's a winner. So if you're the Doctor that gets to the end, you're the winner. However, co-op is being that you can work with another player to defeat these things. So what's good about that is if you need a specific color die because you either don't have enough, or the enemy or location that you're kind of fighting against is too many of one color. One of the other doctors can give you dice to kind of mitigate, to change some dice around. So, I mean, that's the co-op of it all, where you can also like swap items and swap certain things. There's some interactive things, but it's not like a true co-op. And that's why you could play solo, which I kind of like doing. I like just kind of having like one other doctor with me and kind of playing that way. This is a great solo game in my opinion, because this game would be very frustrating to kind of introduce to my wife, and then we just get our butts kicked and just be like, that's a great game, right? That being said, that's the gameplay. That's kind of how it plays. It's a lot of dice rolling. It very much reminds me of the game that we've covered before, the Thanos Rising. Very much like that, but with some more mitigation and powers, where it's just like, hey, like you're fighting against this character, you need to roll a certain amount, and there's ways to mitigate it. Like, it's not overly complicated. The complications are in a lot of the character cards have like a lot of iconography, where it'll be like a green die with a 1 and an arrow, and that means you have the ability to re-roll a green, but it's like you got to constantly catch yourself looking at the instruction manual, because there's so iconography, like so much happening. There's like some of the die colors are green and blue. That just kind of represents you could use a green or a blue. Like, it's not super complicated, but there's certainly times where I'm looking and I'm like, I don't remember what this means, or I'll forget what the power is because there's so much happening. This is a Gale Force 9 production, so it's absolutely incredible. The components are like high quality. All the cardboard circular discs, all the cardboard boards are like thick. They feel like really heavy. The cards are really nice. The board, and then like I said, the disc kind of like fit into the grooves of the board. It's just like a nice idea, like kind of component, and it really works well. It has miniatures, but it's not a miniature game. The miniatures are nice, but they could have easily just gone like cardboard standees, and it kind of would have been maybe a little cheaper, but also give the same effect. But the minis that you get are really nice. There's 6 Dalek miniatures. There's a Davros figure. There's 4 little TARDISes that you move around. So it's cool. It's cool to move around. It's cool to see. It's nice that they're miniatures, but it could have easily just been like cardboard standees or something else. The dice are high quality. They're colorful. You got the greens, the reds, the blues. They pop when they're rolling around. The box that comes in, it has a great insert. Everything fits inside perfectly. I had to kind of Frankenstein take it apart with all the expansions, which adds more cards and characters and locations, but it's not a big deal. It still even fits very nicely and satisfying. The artwork for this game it's fine. It's a lot of screenshots, which I'm not a huge fan of. It's directly taken from the TV show, so I'm a bit torn, because a lot of it is screenshots of just people's faces doing things. A lot of the characters are black and white because that's the era they're from, which it's neat. It's neat to kind of see, but also like I wouldn't have mind maybe just a little bit of like a different look if it was either hand drawn or like that Disney villainous effect, where it's kind of the same thing, but they're just maybe a little painted. Like I prefer that over screenshots, but it's not a deal breaker because it's whatever. It's just people kind of faces. The graphic designs and visuals are really cool. Just besides the iconography, everything is very visible. You kind of see what you're supposed to be doing. The character cards are nicely done. You know what dice you need. You could read the abilities really easily. And then they have little quotes from each character, which I kind of enjoyed. Even if I don't know the character, it's like I kind of read about them. You kind of figure out like what their deal is and what their relationship is with the Doctor. So overall, Time of the Daleks, Doctor Who. I've heard mixed things about this game. It's a very divisive game, and I could see why. I see the pros and the cons of this game. Gale Force 9, every kind of game I played from them, They do a great job with the IP. You could tell it's lovingly taken care of, where as a Doctor Who fan, I look at this and I know all the items, I know all the characters, I know some of the quirky little things and why some of the spaces have what you're rolling. But the game itself is just kind of like, it's tough. Like, I love a dice chucker, I've talked about before. I love throwing dice around. But the game is just, it's hard. And it's the same kind of thing we had with Thanos Rising, the Marvel game, with being a dice chucker. And it can be pretty brutal in the beginning of the game. But that one has less to mitigate. There's less powers, there's less going on. It's less of a race, kind of, than what it is. So in closing, Doctor Who Time of the Daleks is a great game if you're a fan. There's a lot of nostalgia baked into the mechanics. The familiar faces, the callbacks to certain episodes or items, the iconic villains, it's all there. And the expansions really add even more to it if you can get a hold of them. If you're not a fan of the show, it's not going to break the game for you. It still works as a game. There's some magic that might be lost on you, but the gameplay is serviceable, especially if you like chucking dice. And being a co-op really kind of helps. There's sometimes great rolls. Sometimes there's a lot of times frustrating rolls. But if you're there for the mechanics and the tight puzzle, then it's a game that you'll enjoy. But if you're like me and you're a fan of the theme and you love dice chucking and a little chaos, you're going to have fun. The production quality is great. The variety, the replayability is solid. It's a great co-op game as well as a great solo experience. A few tweaks can be made to kind of satisfy your trip through time and space a little bit better, but it's still overall like a really solid game for me and one that hits the table a lot. So thank you for listening. If you played the game or you're a fan of Doctor Who and you have another game that I should check out, drop us a message or tag us on Gateway Gamers Pod on Instagram. And don't forget to leave a review if you like what you hear. It helps us reach even more travelers across the multiverse. Until next time, keep your dice shiny, your sonic charged, and beware the Daleks.